The darkness of space stretched endlessly in all directions, broken only by the distant glow of stars. Captain Lee Jun stood on the bridge of the UES Determination, watching the black void through the main screen. His hands gripped the metal, railing as he studied the sensor readings. Now, 3 months into their mission, and they still had not found any signs of life beyond Earth. "Captain," called Lieutenant Park Min from her station. "I'm picking up something strange on long-range sensors. It's big, maybe 12 light hours ahead." Jen walked over to her console and looked at the fuzzy image on the screen. Whatever it was definitely not natural. The shape was too regular, too purposeful. It looked like a massive structure floating in the empty space between stars.
"Could
be a space station," said Dr. Kim So, the science officer. She adjusted her glasses and studied the readings. The materials are unknown. It's very advanced construction. Jun felt his heart beat faster. This was what they had been looking for. Proof that humanity was not alone in the universe. But as he stared at the readings, he also felt a chill of fear. If someone had built that station, they were far more advanced than Earth. "All ships. This is Determination," Jun spoke into his communicator. "We have a contact. Unknown structure ahead. All vessels maintain radio silence and reduce power to minimum." The human fleet consisted of 6 ships each, carrying a crew of 50 people. They had left Earth with great hopes and simple technology. Their ships used chemical rockets and basic fusion drives. Compared to the science fiction movies back home, they were primitive. But they were all that humanity had. Far away, in a different part of space, Admiral Veltar sat in his command chair aboard the Zephyrian flagship, Eternal Glory. The ship was 5 kilometers long and bristled with weapons that could destroy entire planets. Its sensors could detect the smallest energy signature across vast distances. "Report," Veltar commanded. His voice was cold and metallic, filtered through his breathing apparatus. "All sectors clear," Admiral replied his subordinate. "No signs of emerging civilizations. The outer rim remains secure." Veltar nodded with satisfaction. For 3,000 years, the Zephyrian Empire had ruled the galaxy. Their technology was supreme. Their sensors could detect any ship, any transmission, any sign of intelligent life. No species had ever surprised them. The human fleet moved slowly toward the mysterious structure. Captain Jun had ordered all ships to run on minimal power. Their fusion reactors barely glowed, and their chemical thrusters fired in short, quiet bursts. To anyone watching, they would look like floating rocks. Captain whispered Communications Officer Choi Han, "I'm detecting energy signatures from that station. It's active, but I don't think anyone's home." Jun studied the readings. The station was massive, easily 100 times larger than anything humans had ever built. Its design was sleek and curved, made from materials that seemed to absorb light. Power flowed through its systems, but there were no life signs. "Take us closer," Jun ordered. "But keep us dark. If this thing belongs to someone, I don't want them to know we're here." The Determination crept forward, followed by the rest of the fleet. As they got closer, more details became clear. The station was not just advanced, it was beautiful. Its surfaces were smooth and perfect, covered in symbols that glowed with soft blue light. Dr. So worked frantically at her console, trying to analyze the alien technology. "Captain, this is incredible. The materials are unlike anything we've ever seen. The power source appears to be some kind of zero-point energy system." Jun felt both excitement and terror. They had found proof of alien life, but these beings were so far beyond human technology that it was frightening. If they were hostile, Earth would have no chance. Suddenly, a massive shape appeared on their sensors. It was moving fast, heading directly toward the station. Chen's blood turned cold as he realized what it was. "Alien ship," Parkman reported, her voice tight with fear. "Huge, Captain. 20 times our size." The Zephyrian patrol ship Dominator swept through the area, its sensors scanning for any signs of threat. Its AI systems were programmed to detect advanced civilizations that might challenge the Empire. Energy signatures, quantum communications, plasma drives, These were the signs of species that needed to be monitored or eliminated. Commander. HFY barely glanced at his sensor readings. The patrol was routine, boring. Nothing ever happened in this sector. His ship's computers automatically filtered the data, looking for dangerous energy patterns. The human fleet floated silently nearby, their primitive chemical exhausts and basic fusion signatures so low that the Zephyrian sensors dismissed them as background noise. To the advanced alien technology, they were invisible. Sector clear, HFY reported to his superiors. No signs of intelligent activity. Minor gravitational disturbances, consistent with asteroid debris. The Dominator continued on its patrol, route disappearing into the darkness. The humans remained frozen in place, hardly daring to breathe. They had just encountered their first alien ship, and it had passed right by them without noticing. Jun slowly released the breath he had been holding. Their primitive technology had actually saved them. They were so far below the aliens' level that they had been completely overlooked. Well, he said quietly, I guess we're not the only ones out here anymore. The abandoned mining station hung in space like a broken skeleton. Captain Lee Jun stared at the twisted metal and shattered domes that had once been a thriving operation. Debris floated everywhere, some pieces still glowing with residual heat from whatever had destroyed this place. Take us in closer, Jun ordered, but keep the engines cold. I want to know what happened here. Dr. Kim-so worked at her science station, scanning the wreckage. Captain, I'm reading multiple hull breaches. The damage patterns are very specific. This wasn't an accident or natural disaster. Lieutenant Parkman piloted the Determination through the debris field with careful precision. Chunks of unknown metal drifted past their windows, some larger than their entire ship. Whatever race had built this station, they were far more advanced than humans. Look at this, So said, pointing to her screen. The weapon signatures are identical across all the damage sites. Same energy frequency, same burn patterns. Someone did this deliberately. Jen studied the readings. The destruction was systematic and thorough. Every structure had been targeted with precision. This was not random violence. It was planned elimination. Old is this damage? He asked. Maybe 6 months, So replied. The radiation signatures are still decaying. Whoever did this, they were here recently. Weapons Officer Kang-do examined the blast patterns through his scope. Captain, look at these. Scorch marks. They're from directed energy weapons. Very powerful ones. But there are no defensive positions, no return fire damage. This was a massacre. Jun felt a chill run down his spine. Some powerful force had destroyed this entire operation without taking a single casualty. The builders of this station had been completely helpless against their attackers. Sir, Communications Officer Choi Han called from his station. I'm picking up transmissions. They're old, probably stored in the station's memory banks. Should I try to decode them? Do it. June said, I want to know who built this place and who destroyed it. Meanwhile, Scout Commander HFY was completing his routine patrol in the nearby sector. His ship, the Zephyrian vessel Swift Justice, moved through space with casual confidence. The patrol route was boring and predictable, just like every other day for the past 50 years. Sector 7 Alpha scan complete, reported his navigation officer. No signs of hostile activity. Standard gravitational disturbances from asteroid fields. Nothing worthy of investigation. HFY barely looked up from his personal entertainment device. These outer rim patrols were punishment duty given to officers who had fallen out of favor. Real warriors fought on the front lines of expansion. Not out here in the empty void. File the report, he said dismissively. Set course for the next waypoint. The Swift Justice's sensors had detected the human fleet twice during the patrol. But the AI systems automatically ignored the primitive signatures. Chemical propulsion and basic fusion drives were considered natural phenomena by the advanced scanning programs. Back at the mining station, Han had managed to decode some of the stored transmissions. The translation software struggled with the alien language, but slowly the story began to emerge. Captain Han said, his voice tight with worry, I think I know what happened here. The builders of this station were called the Kethmori. They were a peaceful mining operation just trying to extract resources from nearby asteroids. What happened to them? Jun asked. They developed faster-than-light communication without permission. Someone called the Zephyrian Empire considered this a violation of galactic law. The punishment was complete destruction. Jun stared at the debris field with new understanding. These Kethmori had been eliminated simply for advancing their technology. If this Zephyrian Empire discovered Earth, humanity would face the same fate. Keep decoding, he ordered. I want to know everything about these Zephyrians. Over the next several hours, the human crew pieced together a terrifying picture. The Zephyrian Empire had ruled the galaxy for thousands of years. They controlled dozens of species, either through direct conquest or the threat of destruction. Any civilization that grew to advanced or independent was eliminated without mercy. Look at this, So said, showing June a decoded star chart. The Zephyrians patrol this entire sector. They have outposts every few light years, monitoring for signs of emerging civilizations. How do they detect new species? Jun asked. Advanced energy signatures, So replied. Quantum communications, plasma drives, zero-point energy systems. They look for the signs of high technology. Jun realized why they had remained undetected. Human technology was so primitive that the Zephyrians didn't even recognize it as artificial. Our chemical rockets and basic fusion drives were beneath notice. We have an advantage, he said slowly. They can't see us coming because we're too primitive to register on their sensors. Kungdu looked up from his weapon analysis. Captain, I've been studying the Zephyrian weapon signatures. They use pure energy weapons. Plasma cannons, particle beams, directed energy systems. What about their defenses? Jun asked. Energy shields, Kongdu replied, designed to deflect other energy weapons. But Captain, I don't think they've ever faced kinetic weapons. Our railguns fire solid metal slugs. Their shields might be useless against physical projectiles. Jun felt a spark of hope. The Zephyrians were so advanced that they had forgotten how to fight primitive enemies. Their technology was their strength, but it was also their weakness. We're not going home yet, he announced to his crew. We need to learn everything we can about these Zephyrians. Earth's survival might depend on it. Captain Lee Jun stood in the observation deck of the Determination, watching a Zephyrian patrol ship move through space in the distance. For 3 weeks, the human fleet had been following these aliens, learning their patterns and studying their technology. What they had discovered was both encouraging and terrifying. They follow the exact same route every time, reported Communications Officer Choi Han, pointing to the star chart on his screen. Same timing, same stops, same patrol pattern. They've been doing this for so long that they don't even think about it anymore. Jen nodded as he studied the data. The Zephyrians were creatures of habit. Their confidence had made them predictable, which was exactly what the humans needed. What about their communication systems? Jun asked. Quantum encrypted, Han replied. But I've managed to decode some of their basic transmissions. Patrol schedules, supply requests, routine reports. Nothing classified, but enough to understand their operations. Dr. Kim So looked up from her science station. Captain, I've been analyzing the debris from that destroyed mining station. Zephyrian weapons are incredibly powerful, but they're all energy-based. Plasma cannons, particle beams, directed energy systems. What about their ship construction? Jun asked. Advanced composite materials, So replied. Lightweight, but incredibly strong. Their hulls are designed to absorb and deflect energy weapons. But Captain, I don't think they've ever faced kinetic weapons. Weapons Officer Kong Du joined the conversation. Our railguns fire tungsten slugs at 15% of light speed. That's pure kinetic energy. If their shields and armor are designed for energy weapons, they might be sitting ducks, Jun finished. The thought was both exciting and frightening. The most powerful empire in the galaxy might be vulnerable too. Humanity's primitive weapons. Suddenly, Lieutenant Parkman called out from the bridge. Captain, we have movement. Large Zephyrian fleet approaching from the inner system. Jun hurried to the bridge and looked at the sensor display. 12 massive ships were heading toward a nearby star system. Their formation was perfect, Movements coordinated. There was something ominous about their approach. "Where are they going?" John asked. Han worked frantically at his console, intercepting Zephyrian communications. "Sir, they're heading for the Kethmori homeworld. The same species that built the mining station." Jun felt his stomach drop. "Are there survivors?" "Yes, sir. The Kethmori evacuated to their home planet after the mining station was destroyed. But the Zephyrians are calling it a final cleansing operation." "Follow them," Jun ordered, "but keep us at maximum distance. I want to see what happens." The human fleet shadowed the Zephyrian battle group as they approached the Kethmori homeworld. The planet was beautiful, covered in blue oceans and green continents. The cities sparkled on the night side, full of millions of innocent lives. "They're not even trying to communicate," Han reported, his voice filled with disgust. "No warnings, no demands for surrender. They're just attacking." The Zephyrian ships opened fire without ceremony. Brilliant beams of energy lanced down from orbit, striking the planet's surface. Cities vanished in blinding flashes of light. The ocean began to boil where the weapons struck. Jen watched in horror as an entire civilization was erased from existence. The Kethmori had no defenses against the orbital bombardment. Their crime had been developing faster than light communication without permission from the Empire, recording everything. So said quietly, tears in her eyes, "The galaxy needs to know what these monsters are capable of." The bombardment continued for 6 hours. When it was over, the Kethmori homeworld was a smoking ruin. The oceans were gone, replaced by seas of molten rock. Nothing could survive on the surface. A mission complete came the cold voice of Admiral Veltar over the Zephyrian. "Communications. The Kethmori threat has been eliminated." All ships returned to patrol stations. The Zephyrian fleet departed as casually as they had arrived, leaving behind a dead world. Jun stared at the ruined planet and felt a burning anger in his chest. This was what Earth would face if the Zephyrians discovered humanity. "Captain Kongdu said quietly, "I've been running combat simulations based on what we just observed. The Zephyrians fight like they're completely invincible. They don't use evasive maneuvers, they don't take cover, they just sit there and shoot. Because nothing has ever hurt them before," Jun replied. "They've never faced an enemy that could fight back." So looked up from her analysis. "Their shields are incredible against energy weapons. But they're designed with one weakness. They can't stop solid matter. The energy fields actually help kinetic projectiles pass through by reducing friction." "You mean our railgun slugs would go right through their shields?" Jun asked. "Not only that," So replied with a grim smile, "the shields would actually help our projectiles maintain velocity. We'd hit harder, not softer." Jun felt a plan beginning to form in his mind. The Zephyrians were powerful, but they had one critical weakness. They had never faced an enemy that fought with primitive weapons. Their technology was so advanced that they had forgotten how to defend against simple kinetic attacks. "We're going to hit them," he announced to his crew, "but we're going to do it smart. We'll target isolated outposts first, learn their responses, test their defenses." "What about Earth?" Parkman asked. "We'll send a message drone back home with everything we've learned. But we're not running away. Someone needs to bloody their nose, and it looks like that someone is us." The human fleet prepared for war against the most powerful empire in the galaxy. The Zephyrian outpost Gamma 7 floated peacefully in the void, its massive structure gleaming. Under the light of a distant star, the station was home to 300 Zephyrian soldiers and scientists, all confident in their empire's absolute power. Commander Tolkien sat in his command chair, reviewing routine patrol reports with bored indifference. "All sectors clear," reported his sensor officer. "No signs of hostile activity. The outer rim remains secure." Tolkien nodded without interest. He had commanded this outpost for 20 years, and nothing had ever happened. The Empire's enemies were all primitive species who could barely leave their home planets. The idea of a real threat was laughable. 3 million kilometers away, Captain Li Jun watched the Zephyrian outpost through his ship's telescopes. The UES Determination and her sister ship, the UES Defiance, had been studying the station for 6 days. They knew its patrol schedules, its defensive patterns, and its weaknesses. Weapons ready, Captain, reported Kongdu from his station. Railguns loaded with tungsten slugs. You have a clear firing solution. Jun took a deep breath. This would be humanity's first strike against the Zephyrian Empire. Everything they had learned about their enemy would be tested in the next few minutes. Remember, Jen said to his crew, we fire and then we run. Hit hard, hit fast, and disappear before they know what happened. The two human ships approached the outpost using minimal power. Their chemical thrusters fired in tiny bursts, barely registering on any sensors. The Zephyrian detection systems, they looked like floating debris. Range 200,000 kilometers, Parkman reported quietly. We're in the optimal firing zone. Jun studied the tactical display. The Zephyrian outpost was huge and heavily armed, but its shields were designed for energy weapons. Their railguns would punch right through those defenses. Fire, Jun ordered. The railguns on both ships fired simultaneously. 6 tungsten slugs, each weighing 50 kilograms, accelerated to 15% of light speed. They crossed the distance to the outpost in less than 3 seconds. Commander Tolkien was reviewing supply reports when his station shuddered violently. Alarms began blaring throughout the outpost as sections of the hull simply vanished. The tungsten slugs had punched through the energy shields like they weren't even there. What's happening? Tolkien shouted over the chaos. Unknown weapons fire. His tactical officer reported in panic. Solid projectiles. Shields are useless against them. Impossible, Tolkien snarled. Nothing can penetrate our defenses. But the evidence was all around him. The outpost's hull had been breached in 6 places. Atmosphere was venting into space. Emergency systems were failing throughout the station. Where did the attack come from? Tolkien demanded. Unknown, sir, the sensor officer replied. I'm detecting. No energy signatures, no quantum communications. It's like the attackers are invisible. The human ships had already begun their retreat. As soon as their railguns fired, they cut all power and drifted away on momentum alone. To the Zephyrian sensors, they had simply vanished. Damage report, Tolkien ordered. Critical systems failure in 3 sectors, came the reply. 73. Casualties. Attackers used some kind of primitive kinetic weapons. Solid metal projectiles fired at incredible velocity. Tolkien stared at the reports in disbelief. Kinetic weapons? That was technology from the Dark Ages. No civilized species had used such primitive methods for thousands of years. Send a distress signal to Fleet Command, he ordered. Tell them we've been attacked by unknown forces using primitive solid matter weapons. Meanwhile, the human fleet had regrouped at a safe distance. Jun reviewed the battle data with satisfaction. The attack had been perfect. The Zephyrian shields had been completely useless against their railgun slugs. Minimal damage to the outpost structure, so reported. But we punched holes right through their critical systems. They'll be out of action for weeks. What about their response? Jun asked. They're sending distress signals, Han replied. But look at this. They're describing our attack as impossible. They can't understand how primitive kinetic weapons penetrated their defenses. Jen smiled grimly. The Zephyrians were so advanced that they had forgotten the basics of warfare. Their technology was their strength, but it was also their greatest weakness. Target the next outpost, he ordered. We're going to keep hitting them until they figure out what's happening. Over the next 2 weeks, the human fleet struck for more Zephyrian outposts. Each attack followed the same pattern. The humans would approach using minimal power, fire their railguns, and disappear before the enemy could respond. The Zephyrian High Command received increasingly frantic reports. Outposts were being destroyed by ghost ships firing primitive weapons. Attacks seemed to come from nowhere, and the attackers vanished without a trace. Admiral Veltar read the reports with growing confusion. Solid matter weapons? That's impossible. No species has used kinetic weapons for millennia. Perhaps it's rebels using captured technology, suggested his aide. Then why can't we detect them? Veltar demanded. Our sensors are the most advanced in the galaxy.
Nothing can
hide from us. But the humans were hiding in plain sight. Their primitive technology was so far beneath the Zephyrians' notice that they were effectively invisible. Every time they attacked, the enemy ships simply vanished from sensors. "Double the patrols," Veltar ordered. "Find these ghost ships and destroy them." But the humans were already moving to their next target, leaving behind only confused reports and damaged outposts. The most powerful empire in the galaxy was being humiliated by an enemy they couldn't even see. Admiral Veltar stood on the bridge of his flagship, the Eternal Glory, staring at the tactical display with burning anger. 7 outposts had been destroyed in the past month by an unknown enemy using primitive weapons. The humiliation was unbearable. "Battle. Group 7 is in position," reported his tactical officer. "All 12 ships are ready for combat. We've finally cornered them." Veltar nodded with satisfaction. His ships had been hunting the ghost attackers for weeks, following their trail of destruction across the outer rim. Now, his sensors showed a small fleet hiding in the shadow of a dead moon. The cowards had nowhere left to run. "Open all channels," Veltar commanded. "I want to speak to these insects before we crush them." Meanwhile, Captain Lee Jun stood on the bridge of the Determination, watching the massive Zephyrian fleet approach. 12 heavy cruisers, each one 5 times larger than his biggest ship. The enemy formation was perfect, their movements coordinated. But Jun wasn't afraid. "All ships report ready for combat," announced Lieutenant Park Min. Weapons charged, railguns loaded. Jun studied the tactical display. The Zephyrian ships were approaching in a tight formation, their energy shields glowing with deadly power. They were confident, arrogant, completely certain of their victory. "They still don't understand what they're facing," Jun said quietly. "After all these attacks, they still think we're some kind of rebel group using captured technology." Dr. Kim So looked up from her science station. "Their shield configuration is standard anti-energy pattern. We're expecting plasma cannons and particle beams. Railguns will punch right through." "Sir," Communications Officer Choi Han called. "Out. The Zephyrians are broadcasting on all frequencies." "Let's hear what they have to say," Jen replied. Admiral Veltar's cold voice filled the bridge. "Unknown vessels, this is Admiral Veltar of the Zephyrian Empire. You have committed acts of terrorism against lawful installations. Surrender now, and your death will be quick." Jun activated his own communicator. "This is Captain Lee Jun of the United Earth Space Force. We represent the human species. You have terrorized peaceful civilizations for too long. Today, that ends." Veltar's response came immediately. "Humans never heard of you. Primitive species do not threaten the Empire. This is your final warning." Jen looked around at his crew. They were scared but determined. These people had volunteered to travel across the galaxy to protect Earth from threats they couldn't even imagine. Now, they faced the most powerful military force in known space. "All ships," Jun announced over the fleet channel, "remember your training. Stay mobile, hit hard, and trust your weapons. Out day. We show the galaxy that humans don't surrender." The battle began with devastating suddenness. Both fleets opened fire simultaneously. But the results were completely different than what the Zephyrians expected. The Zephyrian energy weapons lanced out in brilliant beams of destruction. Plasma cannons and particle beams that could destroy. Planets struck the human ships with incredible force. But the human vessels had been built for deep space exploration. Designed to withstand radiation, debris, and the harsh realities of interstellar travel without energy shields, the primitive, human armor held against the advanced alien weapons. Sections of hull plating melted away, but the ships remained intact. Emergency systems kicked in, sealing breaches and rerouting power around damaged systems. Meanwhile, the human railguns fired their deadly cargo. Tungsten slugs weighing 50 kilograms each crossed the space between fleets in seconds, traveling at 15% of light speed. The Zephyrian energy shields, designed to deflect plasma and particle beams, were completely useless against solid matter. The first salvo of railgun fire tore through the Zephyrian formation like a hurricane. The massive cruisers shuddered as tungsten slugs punched through their hulls, destroying critical systems and causing massive internal explosions. "Impossible," Veltar shouted as his flagship rocked under the impact. "Our shields should stop. Everything. Projectiles are passing right through, his tactical officer reported in panic. Solid matter weapons. Our defenses are useless. Jun watched with grim satisfaction as the Zephyrian formation fell apart. The enemy ships were designed for fighting other energy-based civilizations. They had never faced kinetic weapons before, and their tactics were completely wrong. Concentrate fire on their command ship, Jun ordered. Target their bridge section. The human fleet moved with coordinated precision, their simple but effective tactics outmaneuvering the Zephyrian AI-controlled responses. The aliens relied on predictable patterns and automated systems. While the humans adapted and improvised, Weapons Officer Kangdu fired the killing blow. A concentrated barrage of railgun slugs struck the Eternal Glory's command section. The massive ship's bridge exploded in a shower of debris, taking Admiral Veltar with it. The remaining Zephyrian ships scattered in panic. Their formation broken, their admiral dead, they fled toward the inner systems. For the first time in 3,000 years, the Empire had been defeated in open battle. Jun watched the enemy retreat with mixed feelings. They had won this battle, but the war was far from over. The Zephyrians would return in greater numbers, and Earth would need to be ready. Send a message drone back to Earth, he ordered. Tell them everything we've learned. I need to start preparing for invasion. The human fleet began its long journey home, carrying knowledge that would change the course of galactic history. Behind them, word spread among the subjugated species that someone had finally bloodied the Empire's nose. The Zephyrians never saw it coming, and now it was too late to matter.